Hello. It's been a couple months. I haven't made a video since August, so I haven't talked about books I've read in August or September. So that's what I'm going to do today. But before I do that, I've got a beer to drink, and I have Alai Light by Cigar City. And if you aren't aware of Cigar City, their flagship IPA is Alai. This is the session IPA version of that. They came out with one called High Low, which I like the name of that a lot better than Alai Light. I think they could have done Highlight. That would have been a good little play on words. But they didn't ask me, so. This is 4% ABV and 120 calories, so pretty good for a session. I've got a lot of books to talk about, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this beer. It's good though, and I think it's true to the Highline name. I haven't kept up with that brewery, but I think their brewery closed down in Tampa. I've been to the one in Tampa probably 10, 12 years ago, but I don't know what's going on with them. But their beer's still in the store, so that's good. All right, I'm going to start with the books I read in August. I'm going to move kind of quick, hopefully. I brought notes because I don't. It's been a while, and I feel like when I read a book and then a month has passed and I've read, 5 or so other books since reading that book, I don't remember anything about mainly character names I struggle with, so that's what my notes are. First up, I finished Nightmares and Dreamscapes by Stephen King. I enjoyed this. I mean, I enjoy every King that I've read. There are definitely stories I didn't care for as much in this one. The first story in the book, Dolan's Cadillac, is was one of my least favorites. So it started out, I was like, oh boy, am I going to even make it through this? Because it's big, and if I start hating the stories in the beginning, I might just quit. But he does a good job of keeping you entertained by switching, not necessarily switching genre, but there's some that are like Monster of the Week, X-Files kind of a feel. There's some that are more thrillery. There's some more that are just that classic King horror type vibe. My favorite was a screenplay called Sorry Right Number. That was a highlight for me. The lowlights were Dolan's Cadillac. I also didn't like. There was a whole story, if you can call it that, about his son's Little League playoffs. I didn't like that at all, and I don't know why it was in this book. It felt like a lot of scraps. That feels so disrespectful to talk about King that way. A lot of these felt like scraps. Like maybe they should have stayed. Oh man, I don't like. No, I take that back. I think with a collection like this, and I've said this about other short story collections, to me, there were some I did not enjoy, and I bet other people those were their favorites, and the ones I enjoyed the most were their least favorites, right? So I think if you're going to put a collection together, you're not going to please everybody. So make it sort of like a shotgun spread of stories. And that's what he did. And a few of these I really, really loved. The only other short story collection from King I read was Some Like It Darker or You Like It Darker. It was a few years ago. I think I liked that more than this, if I'm being honest, but still great. All right, I spent too much time on that, so I'm going to try to speed up the pace here. Next up, Waiting for the Barbarians by J.M. Coetzee. I read this one because I read Disgrace a couple months ago. I just had a moment where I thought I got the name wrong. Disgrace. It's one of my it's definitely my favorite book that I've read this year. Definitely in my top 3 of all time. Might be my favorite book ever. So I immediately ran out and bought a few more of his books, one of them being Waiting for the Barbarians. This one, not as good as Disgrace. A lot of parallels, I think, with the main character in this book and the main character in Disgrace. Completely different plot and setting and everything. This is about a magistrate that lives on this border town of the empire he serves. And there are barbarians that the empire's kind of starting to go to war with. And he slowly realizes morally he's not okay with what's happening. And I'll kind of leave it at that. I liked him as a character. I think he's nameless. My problem with this book is the moral lesson here is like very obvious. It's like yes, it's bad to kill and torture people, and I think like standing up for that is good, and not being complicit is good. Hopefully, people don't have to read an entire book to like learn that. Um, Whereas Disgrace, it was like the character was complex and the morals were dicey, and um, it's all from his perspective, so you kind of don't know if you trust him. It was just, to me, it was more engaging from the ethical perspective, whereas this is pretty straightforward. But the writing's great. I love Coetzee, and I'm excited to read the other ones I bought from him. Next up, of all the books I'm going to talk about today, this is by far the one I'm most excited to talk about: The Isolationist and Other Stories by V.M. Harrigan. This is a short story collection, very, very small. I think it's like 5 or 6 stories. Every single one is just perfect. Not a note on this one. I wouldn't change a thing. They are so bizarre and unique and weird and make your stomach hurt from how like dark and oof. And I loved it. I would. I almost wanted to just start over and reread it again, as insane as that sounds. Uh, I'll talk about the story that the title's named after, The Isolationist, as an example, is about this person, if you can call it a person, who had he's he had like parts of his he was dying. It sounded like a terminal illness, so he decided to have parts of his brain removed, and like I don't remember if his body was gone and it was only his head, but the parts of the brain that got removed were the parts that could perceive time. Like, so he didn't have any memory from the past, and he had no, I don't, perception of the future. And he kept repeating. It was very, and it's told, I think, from the perspective of, and I'm sorry if I'm butchering this because, again, it's been a month and a half since I read it, but it's told from the perspective of one of his friends, I think, that's going to visit him. And he's just like, I envisioned like a brainstem on it was just really dark. But bizarre stories like that, and they're ones where you're just sitting there thinking like, how did this guy come up with this weird stuff? They're like dreams almost. And my favorite part of his writing is he doesn't set it up at all. You start a new story and you're thrown right into the middle of whatever's happening, and you're left trying to piece together what's going on, and like what universe is this that this story exists in. There's like fairies eating mushrooms and like uh, wild stuff that is very, very fun to read. I'm excited to read that. One of the stories in this, I Will Have My Crown, one of my favorites in it. I think I read in the afterword that he's releasing either a standalone novel that came from, or another short story collection. Regardless, V.M. Harrigan, Manifold House is who published this. Highly recommend. You can get it through barnesandnoble.com too, and Amazon, I think. It's available on Kindle. I think it's on Kindle Unlimited. I could be wrong. Next up, No Longer Human. This one is about just a sad kid and then grows into adulthood. He's very depressed. He feels unable to relate to other people. Maybe might be autism. They don't talk about that, but just the way he can't perceive emotions and the othering he feels. I might be looking too much into that, but he learns pretty early on to joke and sort of be the class clown to cope with that anxiety that he feels. And this follows him into his adult life, into even darker depression and some substance issues, and eventually a suicide attempt that he does with another person. And I'm not spoiling the plot. I think this is would be on the back of the book. I really liked the writing. The only reason I struggled with this one is because I read a book called Life for Sale by Mishima. Mishima, and very similar themes. I felt like I was reading that book again. They're both Japanese translated works, so that could be part of it. Maybe they definitely similar writing style, but ultimately just very depressing, and it kind of just leaves you not with a lot of insight into I don't know. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, that sucked emotionally, and then it's over. That was August. I feel like I've already talked for 15 minutes. September. First book in September was an audiobook I listened to by John Green, The Anthropocene Reviewed. Great, 5-star read. He starts the book by talking about sort of how reviews came to be in his mind, like the internet and how everybody can review everything, and there's like you can go on Google or Amazon and give stuff 4 out of 5 and or rate things based on star rating. What the book does, so the Anthropocene, I'm going to butcher this. Oh gosh, I'm going to butcher this. The Anthropocene is humans' relationship with the world, sort of, and with each other. Maybe I'll throw up a definition or something because I probably butchered that. But the Anthropocene Reviewed is John Green's collection of reviews. He's reviewing things that are part of the Anthropocene. Diet Dr. Pepper, Halley's Comet, a bunch of just random stuff. And it sounds on its face sort of maybe boring or simple. Like, why do I want to know what John Green thinks about Diet Dr. Pepper? I promise you, you do. And I would recommend the audiobook. I said the same thing for Everything is Tuberculosis, which is another one by him that I listened to. I think after listening to Everything is Tuberculosis, I said I could listen to John Green talk about anything. And that was before reading The Anthropocene Reviewed, and that proved it. But it's deeper than just these bite-sized reviews. It all blends together, and it's deeply personal. I teared up a few times at just it's a very human book, a refreshing read. Highly recommend. Next up, My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This book follows Jade Daniels. Is that right? Yes, Jade Daniels, a high school girl who's obsessed with slasher movies. This is the first in a trilogy, the Indian Lake trilogy. So yeah, she's obsessed with slashers, and then she's in this kind of remote town on a lake, and there's some new developments starting. And there was apparently a Friday the 13th style camp slaying some years back at this camp on the lake. And the book opens with another murder happening in present day. And yeah, I don't want to say anything else about the plot. It's a very fun horror sort of. If you love slasher movies, there's a lot of references to slasher movies. I'm not crazy about slasher movies. They're fine, but I don't have like deep knowledge in them, and I enjoyed this, and the references didn't bother me. So yeah, I liked this. It was a fun time, definitely for spooky season. I would pick it up. I already bought the second book. I'm excited to read that. Next up, Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. I'm not even going to really talk about this one. Obviously, a classic, 5 stars. I feel silly even talking about it. There's nothing to be said that hasn't already been said. It's very short. I think everyone should read this before they die. Heartfelt, sad. It's just, yeah. This is one of those books you think about once every couple weeks for the rest of your life, I would imagine. Steinbeck does no wrong. Then I have another one that I listened to, In the Tall Grass by Stephen King and Joe Hill. Joe Hill is Stephen King's son. This is a book they wrote together, a short story. The audiobook was about 2 hours long, and I listened to it with my wife in the car. We took a day trip over to Pensacola, and it was fun. I had a blast. I would recommend the audiobook. I don't know who the voice actor was, but he did a great job. It's a very Stephen King book. There's a brother and sister. The sister is pregnant. They're driving cross country, and the window's down in their car, and they hear a little boy yelling from this tall grass on the side of the highway, like, "Help! Help! I'm in here! Help me!" And they pull over and they go in, and then they immediately lose each other and can't find each other, and it gets crazy. It gets very Stephen King. And my favorite part was listening to it with my wife, just having it's, I mean, obviously when you're reading, unlike a movie where when you watch it with someone, you can kind of, unless you're in a book club or something, I guess but even in a book club, you can't have like live reactions. So it's fun to listen to a book with someone and live react with them. Because just all I can say is it's very Stephen King, the bizarre choices that that man makes. And I haven't read anything else by Joe Hill, and that got me excited to read some Joe Hill because if he takes after his father, I'm in for a treat. So yeah, highly recommend that. We watched the movie after on Netflix, and it did it justice, and it did that thing where it changes the plot a lot, which I like. If I read a book, I want the movie to take some liberties and experiment a bit in that same universe, which is I feel like that's what the movie did well. But listen to the book or read the book before the movie for sure. And then another one I don't have here because I got it off Libby, Monstrilio. I'm blanking on the author's last name. Another 5-star read for me. Beautiful book about grief, and it's this couple who has a son that was born with one lung, given sort of a short lifespan, and when he dies in grief, the mother cuts him open and like cuts out a piece of his lung because she heard one of her friends told her this like folklore story about, I guess if you cut a piece of lung out of someone and you feed it, it grows into a monster that then becomes a person, and that's what happens. And it's told from 4 different perspectives. It starts with the mom. I might get the order wrong. Starts with the mom, then it goes to the mom's friend, and then it goes to the husband, and then it goes to Monstrilio, who is the monster. Yeah, just well written. You have no idea where it's going at any time. People say it's like the modern. One of the reviews on the cover says it's the modern day Frankenstein. I haven't read Frankenstein, but Monstrilio as a character is just heartbreaking and lovable and dark, and you see this image of this mother who lost a son and is sort of embracing this she's embracing this delusion that she can have her son back through this monster. Just an all-timer for me. I loved Monstrilio. Okay, last one, Discontent, which I recently, people might not like this, but I subscribe to Book of the Month. Um, Whatever, if you don't like it. I don't know why people don't like it. It's bad for bookstores, maybe, I guess. I think it's really good for authors. I don't know. I haven't looked into it enough. But I like the idea that I have a selection of books every month and I pick one, and then there's a bunch of other people who are reading the same thing as me, and there's like an active subreddit where you can go and like hear other people or read other people talking about the books. There's like discussion threads. I don't know. I think it's a neat little thing. I didn't know it was like 100 years old. They did Book of the Month. They've been doing Book of the Month for a really long time. Anyway, Book of the Month aside, Discontent. I liked Discontent. I didn't love it. I really, really enjoyed her writing. I thought it was funny. It's about a woman who's like, I think she's like a VP of marketing in not corporate America. This is a translated work. I don't know what country. Spain? Oh boy. Venezuela? No, I don't know. Cut that. Uh, some not American country. Hold on. Madrid. She lives in Madrid, and she's just depressed. Her job is pointless, or monotonous, I should say, not pointless. And she watches YouTube all day, and she delegates tasks, and she's in the weeds of it. If you've worked in corporate America, I think at one point or another you've been in that state of just working to work and get by. And I read a lot of complaints about this book that it was like a privileged take, like, oh, poor me, I have a job and I make a bunch of money, but I'm not fulfilled, which I get. Yeah, there's people suffering in the world. The worst life isn't one where you work in a cubicle and serve the corporate overlords. I get that. But I think there's plenty of room for books like this. Not everything has to be about the worst thing ever, you know? I thought I related a lot to it, and it meant a lot to me to read that on the page and understand this character's experience. What I didn't love is the last quarter of this book. It's, to me, the vibe just doesn't match the rest of the book. It feels very rushed, and just weird stuff happens that I feel like didn't fit the plot. If there is a plot, there really wasn't that big of a plot until the end either. But it was her first book, and no doubt I would read another book by her because I really did enjoy her writing. Beatriz Serrano. That's it. That's what I've read. That took a long time. Thanks for watching. I hope you've been well, and I'm actually going to film another video, and I'm going to put it out this week, so be on the lookout for that. Just something different than what I've been doing with the reading recaps. But yeah, I hope you're doing well, and thanks for watching. Cheers.